what truly matters. I had a few different things I was going to share in this section, and I've tightened it up really to sort of one key thing. CYA, right? Covering your butt matters more now than ever because this industry has gotten that much more complex. We've just come through an incredible stretch where nationwide we had people writing condition-free offers. No subjects, no conditions, going in firm. And there's a lot of heartache and pain that ensued for clients, realtors, and brokers alike out of a lot of this. And one of the aspects, I think, of the client-broker relationship needs to be that we work with clients. We are equal partners. That is a really important piece of the puzzle. And when you're a brand new broker, it's really easy to feel kind of beholden to the clients. Like you're sort of the second-class citizen, they have the steering wheel, they're the driver, and you're the passenger, and that is absolutely not the way it's meant to be. You have to be equal in this transaction. You're going to help them, they're going to help you. You're going to do your part, they're going to do their part. And a key filter, the client supplying the requested documents properly. Are they doing it quickly or not? Or are they resisting? And there's the one Star Wars reference you'll get from me, but seriously, right? I mean, where are the docs? If the docs aren't coming in, that's a pretty big sign as to where we're at. Or worse, we get the redacted docs. And this is a letter I wrote for a client a few years back when they sent me a bunch of redacted documents. I said, please review the attached policy regarding redacted documents. And I sent this to them. And it was good for a laugh. They got it, and they eased up, and they actually did send me unredacted documents in the end. But a key filter for client interaction really is the letter of engagement. And again, much shorter segment than we've used in the past, but I do want to focus a little bit on this document because sending a client a 3-page letter of engagement seems like a bit much for some people. I know up front it can be a little more than some people are ready to tackle. And the highlighted sections in here in particular are kind of the key, right? And we're going to get to the really good stuff. But it outlines so many key things. Like, we're not going to sell your information to a third party. We're keeping everything confidential, right? These are pretty important pieces. If we discover illegal or fraudulent activity during a transaction, we may be required to report these findings to the appropriate authorities. Like, you're making it clear right out of the gates, not only do I not engage in fraud, if you send me fraudulent documents, I will have to report you to the regulator, to whomever. And I think those are very important things, again, to sort of pre-filter out the people who are fraudsters. They're not going to want to sign this thing. They're not going to like what they're reading if they read the whole thing. Also, clearly defining your role, right? Both before and after a mortgage commitment is presented, right? Like, we may need additional information before and after. Just because you gave me a batch of documents up front doesn't mean that's it. I may need more documents. And the key in that communication paragraph, I think, given what we just went through, and this was in there years ago. This is a document we've been using for about 4 years now. At no point are we able to guarantee financing, right? Like, that is a pretty key piece. Even when you're pre-qualified or when a lender commits to financing, we cannot guarantee that the lender will fulfill an issued mortgage commitment, particularly if circumstances change following the approval. These are key pieces of information that at different points in every broker's career, they wish had been communicated in writing up front with the client. Because you will find yourself at some point in a position with a client where you want to break up with them. Because things have gotten so far off the tracks, you're just stressing. You're stressing out. And by the way, the proceeds of crime and anti-money laundering piece, I want to touch on that quickly. I can touch on it a little bit of a different way. You will, in your career, almost certainly have a file that a lender declines for no obvious reason. They have great credit, they've got income, they've got down payment, everything's in line. They may even bank with that bank themselves. And what could possibly be the issue here? There are searches that the lender does in the background, things like a Citadel search. And those things search for ongoing investigations regarding money laundering, financial crimes, that sort of thing. And under the Act, if you discover that your client is under investigation, you're obligated to not disclose that to the client. Meaning that the lender, if the lender has a client that you've sent the application and they discover that this client is under investigation for money laundering, they actually can't tell you that your client is under investigation for money laundering. They just say no. And sometimes that search, depending on the lender, isn't done until the week or 3 days before funding. So 3 days before funding, suddenly the lender's pulling the commitment, saying we're not funding this thing, and not giving you any reason. And when there's no reason, that's probably the reason. Financial crimes, money laundering, something along those lines. The other piece that goes on here, as you can see on page 2, we click through, suitability and risks, right? Suitability and risks. There's some very important details in there, i.e. around the good old variable rate mortgage. When a mortgage payment increases or decreases with changes to prime rate of a lender, as some lenders require, there may be no notice to you. This may affect your ability to meet obligations to the lender. How much more comfortable do you think variable rate brokers, clients who put their, brokers who put their clients in variable rate mortgages, how much more comfortable do you think they are knowing that they had this wording in from the very beginning of the transaction? That's pretty significant. The other key piece in this document, and this is something I talk about often, again, going back to being so far down the road with this client, you're buried in this transaction, and you want out. You want out. I had it happen in January of 2017. I was at the Tony Robbins Business Mastery event. I'm down in Florida. I'm trying to be engaged, and I've got this file going so sideways 3 days before funding, and like I wanted to fire the client 2 months ago. I wanted to, but I was using a flimsy two-paragraph, 1-page client agreement. Nowhere in there did it talk about termination of engagement. And I phoned a couple people, I phoned managing broker and a few other people in the industry and said, like, where's my responsibility in this? Like, this client has not done anything I've asked them to do for weeks on end. Now we're bumping up against the closing date. It's not going to close on time. He's threatening to sue me, and I just want to end this. Like, I don't have the documents the lender has requested to actually fund the mortgage, but this guy doesn't seem to care, and he's talking about suing me. I just want to break up with him. And I sent my client agreement to a lawyer, and he looked at it, and he said, in his opinion, I'd be in trouble. There was no way I was really going to be able to get out of working with this client. And I'd had this document in my inbox for the better part of a year at that point. And I just hadn't adopted it because change is hard. My 1-page, 2-paragraph piece was easy for clients to review, click, sign, done. And at the time, this 3-pager was 5 pages. We worked really hard to condense it down to 3 pages. So at the time, it was 5 pages. And hitting clients with a 5-page client agreement up front just felt like, oh, I don't know. But when I was in the heat of that situation, I made the decision. This policy is changing. And it did. It changed from there forward. And subsequently, hundreds of mortgage brokers and agents across the country have adopted this document, which we're going to share with you. And we'll share it in a Word format so that you're able to take and copy and paste and put your own logos on it and everything else. But the key was this termination language that's in here, this termination language in the slide. We may terminate this engagement at any time by providing you with written notice if, and not limited to, you provide us with false, incomplete, or misleading information, you ask us to perform an unethical or illegal act, you fail to cooperate with us, which is what this gentleman was doing, or we cannot find suitable financing for you despite our best efforts to do so. The breakup clause is pure gold in this, absolutely pure gold. And not having this covering your butt, along with the variable rate language, I just couldn't imagine brokering without having this beast, right? And, you know, we go on to talk about how we may provide you with options around mortgage, life insurance, critical illness, disability, et cetera. Don't worry, that's not going to trigger a 45-minute rant on MPP. We're going to leave that one alone today in the interest of time. And as I say, I mean, it covers all the bases. Permission to contact you in the future to discuss your mortgage transaction. This 3-pager has the potential to save you so much heartache. So much pain and suffering can be avoided with the adoption of this document. And so much energy, right? So much energy. It is such an effective filter. It is such an effective filter. And like I say, engage with clients only once this document is signed. We have a situation right now in Ontario where a Quebec client is threatening to sue. There's nothing for them to really sue for, so I don't think that's going to go anywhere. That's tomorrow's topic, threats and or lawsuits. But they have reported the Ontario broker to FSRA and also to the AMF in Quebec. And the AMF in Quebec is a little bit worked up because this person who's not licensed to close mortgages in the province of Quebec had conversations with a client in Quebec about a property in Quebec. So it's been a little bit of a gong show with the regulators sorting things out. And the key to the whole problem really is the broker engaged in quoting numbers with no application up front and without any signed client engagement, no credit report, no nothing. So they didn't pull credit without authorization. They didn't do that, but they got into quoting mortgage amounts and interest rates based on what the client was verbally telling them with a little bit of a conversation, and they should not have done that. Getting into talking about rate or mortgage amount without a complete application is very dangerous territory, and getting into a complete application starts with this 3-page letter of engagement. So, like I say, implement it today. We're going to share the Word version with you. I cannot tell you how much easier you will sleep at night when things start to go sideways. It will help you avoid a lawsuit. It'll help you rectify that bad judgment where you kept working with that person that you knew was going to be a problem. And ultimately, as I say, a lot of times people just, they self-select right out on their own. So it helps you avoid a bad client and potentially a bad file. And I have a little asterisk there because a bad client and a bad file can be two different things. You can have really great clients, but the situation, the file itself becomes problematic and you start getting sucked into the gray zone. And you don't want to go into the gray zone at all for a bad client. That's never going to happen. But we wind up feeling pressured to go into the gray zone for good clients who have got themselves into a bad situation, and you must avoid doing that. And again, being able to go back to this document and leaning on it a little bit and saying to the client, look, I appreciate your situation and you didn't plan for this to happen or unfold the way it has, but I can't be the broker that funds this mortgage. The information I have, my knowing this piece, I can't move forward with this. I'm stuck. You need to go somewhere else, and you're not going to coach them from there forward. But again, this document has been pivotal in many files. And as I say, acts as a great, great filter.